The Blue Jackets drastically changed the future of their franchise today by acquiring Damon Severson from the Devils. I'll tell you why it's such a big trade today on Locked On Blue Jackets.
You're Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Hayden Heilsorn. Our co-host, Jay Foster, is not here right now. He is traveling back from America to his home in the UK, so safe travels to our friend Jay. We're here to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly with your favorite team, the Columbus Blue Jackets. But before I get going here, I want to thank you all for making this your first listen every day. Locked On Blue Jackets, free and available on all podcast platforms, the YouTube and Sirius XM app. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Gametime. The Blue Jackets are continuing their insane, crazy, rocky offseason, whatever you want to call it. The Blue Jackets are going to look completely different next season. There's no doubt about that. A lot of people think that's a good thing because the Blue Jackets were so bad last year. I am one of those people that thinks this is a very good thing. Complete flip over of the guys that you had in the room last year with the guys that you're going to have in the room this year. It started with Mike Babcock, bringing him in, and then it was Ivan Provorov. Certainly some emotions with that trade, and now it is Damon Severson traded over from the Devils for a third-round pick. The Blue Jackets then signed the 29-year-old to an 8-year deal worth $6.25 million a year. And a $2 million signing bonus on top of all that. That is some huge change for a defenseman. That is some huge amount of years, too, on a contract. Certainly just a wow move out of Jarmo Kekalainen, the general manager of the Blue Jackets today. Wow, it is truly amazing what Jarmo has done in terms of continuing to bring in guys that are just huge pieces that are sought after. Like, this is Damon Severson was a guy that the New Jersey Devils, a team that just had 112 points, was 1 point shy away of winning the Metropolitan this year. A lot of those people wanted to see Damon Severson re-sign with the Devils and want to stay in New Jersey, and that just wasn't the case. They lost him. He was a huge part of that team's kind of forecoming as a cup contender, and he played great in the playoffs. Devils fans will tell you that. This is a huge piece that the Blue Jackets acquired today. I can't believe they only gave up a third-round pick to get this guy. Not to make it about the last trade that just went down less than a week ago, just a few days ago, earlier this week actually, was the Blue Jackets getting Ivan Provorov for a first-round pick. I thought that was way worse of a deal. Just in terms of the hockey player you were getting for the price that you gave up a first-round pick to get that guy. You only give up a third round to get this guy. You sign him to huge money, but it tells me that it is absolutely a good deal for the Blue Jackets because they signed him to a long-term deal. An 8-year deal is huge. The Blue Jackets don't just go out and do things like that, and here they are completely changing the way that people view Columbus, the way that people view Columbus as not only a hockey team to play for, and the fact that they can be competitive. And I think them hiring Mike Babcock has certainly made them a team that, boom, that gets you instant notoriety. It gets you instantly in the conversation for a Stanley Cup contender just because he's that kind of a coach. He gets you in that conversation, and all of a sudden, just like that, people are flocking to Columbus. So the dominoes are falling in the right way. Just in the last 2 weeks, the Blue Jackets have brought in 3 huge names in the hockey world. I am very excited right now as a Columbus Blue Jackets fan, and you should be too. It is great. It's amazing. And before I get into this Damon Severson guy, I just want to say, trust in Jarmo. Just trust in Jarmo. It gets so frustrating sometimes because he'll make a move and he'll pick up a guy that maybe has a lot of bad things that have happened in his career. Let's just trust the guys that they're bringing in and hope that it all goes together. I'll talk about all the reasons why Damon Severson might not work out with the Blue Jackets upcoming later in this episode. But for right now, I just want to say, good job, Yarmo. Just good job continuing to make this team competitive, continuing to rebuild this team. It seems like every single year he does moves like this, but now he's actually landing big name guys in Columbus, and it's very, very exciting to see. And gosh, I can't wait till this team gets back on the ice, and we still have another draft coming up at the end of June for them to get more talent in. It's really, really exciting, and I'm having tons of fun right now as a Blue Jackets fan. No doubt about it. But I'm going to continue to talk more about Damon Severson, exactly who he is coming over from the Devils. But first, I want to tell you guys a little bit about Birddogs. Birddogs are just a phenomenal outdoor pair of shorts that you can throw on your tush. I mean, they fit amazing. They look nice. First of all, you can wear them out to like a grad party or wherever. And then you can also just keep them on if you're going to go play pickup basketball. It's amazing. You put them on and you just feel so loose and free in them. I highly recommend you guys get yourself a pair of Birddogs. They stretch. The khaki shorts are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving you that perfectly sculpted look. And they got plenty of options in terms of what kind of length you can get. My wife she really likes me to stick to the 7-inch seam, so that's what I've been rolling with. But go to birddogs.com/lockedonnhl, enter the promo code lockedonnhl. You get a free Yeti with your order. That's birddogs.com/lockedonnhl. You get a free Yeti. You won't want to miss out on that opportunity. It won't take you long. Go to birddogs.com. All right, more on this Damon Severson cat, this guy that we're getting over from New Jersey. Again, the Blue Jackets only giving up a third-round pick. I am so extremely excited for that for Columbus. I'm just on ESPN, and first of all, I love just any moment when I get on ESPN and Blue Jackets are the headline. That means that they're making moves. That means that they're making moves because the Blue Jackets are, first of all, not often thought about as a team that really ruffles the feathers, and they're not a team that main media outlets go to in terms of content when talking about hockey, right? The Blue Jackets aren't on the front page of anything hockey related unless they're making moves. So it's very nice to get on ESPN and see Greg Wyshynski write about the Jackets. And just I want to read a little bit about what Greg Wyshynski wrote about the Jackets today, because he is a well-known, highly rated hockey writer with ESPN. He says the Blue Jackets are continuing to aggressively remodel their defense, acquiring Damon Severson from the New Jersey Devils in a sign and trade that gives the defenseman a new 8-year, $50 million contract. The team announced this Friday. Severson, 28 years old, signed the contract, $6.25 million annually with the Devils, and then they traded him to Columbus for the third round, number 80 overall pick in this month's draft. Wow, it is absolutely phenomenal that the Blue Jackets have gone and done this, considering that they just lost Vladislav Gavrikov this past year. Vladislav Gavrikov was an absolutely huge fundamental piece for the Blue Jackets, but they needed to get him out in a package deal with Corpy to get that first round pick that they flipped for Provorov, and now they got that third round pick out and they bring in this guy, sign him. It's absolutely huge. But again, I can't talk more about the signing. I'm going to talk more about the signing later, but just who is Damon Severson? I'll tell you who he is. He's played 9 seasons in the NHL at the age of 28 already. All 9 seasons have been with the New Jersey Devils. He's accumulated great amounts of points, 263 points in 647 games. He's really earned that coin, offensive defenseman. And it's not just because he has 58 goals in those 647 games, but those 205 assists are where I really look at. And when you watch highlight tapes of this guy, when you get on YouTube, the first thing that you'll notice, the plays that will absolutely slap you in the face from this past season are his stretch passes. This guy has an instinct when the puck is on his stick, no matter where it's at, he keeps his head up and he's looking for the long home run pass to the guy on his team all the way at the other end of the ice. That's going to create a 1-on-0 with the goalie. And that is absolutely huge for the Blue Jackets because they haven't really had a guy like that since Seth Jones. Zach Werenski's like that. Blankenberg is certainly like that. But this is a huge acquisition for the Blue Jackets. It almost, like, for any person that had been going about the last few seasons really missing Seth Jones, I really think you will forget about Seth Jones when you see a guy like Damon Severson. And the only reason I'll point to that is because the Blue Jackets are paying Damon Severson now more money than what Seth Jones was making. Seth Jones was making about $5 million a year at the most while he was here. And we all know Seth Jones, NHL All-Star nominee, played in the NHL All-Star game. Damon Severson making $6.25 million. The expectation is that he will be better than Seth Jones, and I think he will live up to that. He is a very offensive defenseman, and I will talk a little bit more about that in my concerns. But just in terms of how he fits in this team, guys, when I say the Devils were a better team and Damon Severson was a huge reason why they were as good as they were this year. And it's completely accurate to say a huge credit goes to Damon Severson because he was hitting those stretch passes to Jack Hughes, to some of their playmakers the entire season, guys. This guy he's really coming to life in his game. He's really hitting his stride. Again, he's only 28 years old. There are some concerns with his penalty minutes, and amongst Devils fans, I'm reading here that they didn't really like some of the plays he would make. Maybe he made a lot of boneheaded plays, it seems like. And clearly if it's because he's collecting penalty minutes, that certainly should be cleaned up under a coach like Mike Babcock. I would hope that a coach like Mike Babcock will be able to squeeze that out of him. But yeah, just in the last couple seasons, he had 57 penalty minutes in 2021, 2022. This past season, he cut that down to 38 minutes, but that's still a little bit more times in the box than I'd probably like. Again, I don't know exactly off the top if that's fights or whatever. I'm okay with fights. Fights can really accumulate minutes, but let's clean that up if you're Damon Severson. I don't really know the boneheaded plays thing, but if this is a guy that is an offensive-minded defenseman in terms of he's not only looking to score goals, but he's also looking to score points. And what I mean by that is he's keeping his head up looking for the long stretch pass, or he's looking for that nifty pass, by just keeping his head up. He's probably taking a lot of risk, in turn probably creating a lot of turnovers, which is a big problem I had with Vladislav Gavrikov this past season. In the past 2 seasons, really, with Gavi, it seemed like he became a pizza machine. It seems like certain guys on our team are already like that. Like Adam Boquist, I know has trouble really not being a pizza machine. And I say pizza as I mean he's given up a big juicy slice right in the middle for anybody to take a bite of. That's what he's doing. I don't know if that's what Damon Severson is doing, but a lot of times when I see that somebody's calling a hockey player boneheaded, it means that he is losing possession of the puck a lot. He is maybe making a wrong pass that leads to loss of possession of the puck, a giveaway, if you will. And that can't be good. The Blue Jackets certainly don't want that. But again, this is where I go back to the Blue Jackets have put themselves in such a good situation by bringing in a coach like Mike Babcock, because he's going to put an emphasis on possession of the puck. And I think that will in turn help the defense in a lot of ways, because you can't give up a goal if you have the puck. And that is it seems like all of this is basically the Blue Jackets are going to have what the Toronto Maple Leafs had while Babcock was there, which was a highly loaded offensive team. Provorov, an offensive defenseman, Werenski, an offensive defenseman, Severson, an offensive defenseman, and then just all the offensive talent on the front end is insane. It just concerns me, I guess, a little bit. Is there going to be any emphasis on defense? Are the Blue Jackets going to do anything to address the horrid defense they had this past year? We've seen the Blue Jackets already bring in Boquist and Jake Bean. Like, the Blue Jackets have gone down the route of trying to add a bunch of offensive defensemen. Defensemen just sounds weird, but the Blue Jackets have gone, it's probably because it's wrong, Hayden. The Blue Jackets have done a lot to add offensive defensemen over the past few years, and it's led to just atrocious numbers defensively. Big minus signs in terms of the plus-minus category, where guys are getting goals scored on them. Elvis and Corpy and all the other Tarasov, all these goalies were getting left out to dry last year, and it was because the defense was horrible. And I love the Blue Jackets going out and signing defensemen, but can we get defensemen that maybe specialize in defense, or can the Blue Jackets take an offensive defenseman and add that element to their game? I don't know. These are questions that we'll have to see as the offseason unfolds, but through June 9th here, the Blue Jackets have done a phenomenal job, and especially Yarmo has done a phenomenal job flipping this team from being in conversation for a lottery pick to being in conversation for the playoffs to depending on how the rest of the offseason unfolds and depending on how training camp goes and we get this regular season started, the Blue Jackets could be just like the New Jersey Devils were this past year and be in the conversation, be in the hunt for a Stanley Cup. They're going to have a whole lot of work to do before they get there. But I really think that's on the table with what the Blue Jackets are bringing in. And I know last year people are probably scratching their head, Hayden, how can you take a team that finished third to last in the NHL and take them all the way up to playoffs, let alone a Stanley Cup contender? And the simple truth is I think the Blue Jackets were soft this past year. I think the Blue Jackets left so many games by where guys were sitting out for little nicks and bruises. And that was okay. That was okay with me as a fan because we knew it was probably going to be too hard to make the Stanley Cup playoffs last year with that early injury to Zach Werenski. And now you just push through and made it to the next year and maybe tank for Bedard, and that's what they did. So it was okay to lose some games last year. Damon Severson played 80 games last year for the Devils. He played 80 games the year before that. Provorov played 80 games. The Blue Jackets are adding guys that are tough. So I think this is a completely different team that fans are going to see this upcoming season. I don't think it'll remind you of what you saw this past year at all. And again, it's June. It's the middle of June, so it's obviously time to be excited. I don't even have my co-host Jay here to push me back on this at all because he's so smart. He knows probably some holes in his game, but from an early look here, I can't see any. I can't see any from this deal. The deal is a little long. He is 28 years old. 8 years is long. He's going to be 36 when this contract expires, and they're going to be paying him over $6 million a year, which I said is more than Seth Jones. I don't think you're going to get a Seth Jones caliber player by the time Severson is 36, and maybe I'm wrong by that, but it just doesn't seem that likely. I would have liked this deal to have been more of a 6-year deal at the max. 4 to 5 to 6 year deal. That's kind of the sweet spot, but I guess I can't really complain because the Blue Jackets, frankly, have never been the team to go out and make these big, long signings. So it is very, very exciting that they're doing that. This gets me really, really excited. It gets me excited that knowing that this guy coming over here, he has he's entering really the prime of his career. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But first, them at the top, I'll mention them again. Our friends at Gametime. Are you a little stressed about buying tickets, whether you're going to see a sporting event, a concert, or maybe a comedy show? Well, stop stressing. Go over to Gametime. It's a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all those things. Killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guaranteed. Stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped. The fun you'll have. It's a great app. You click on it. It even gives you a nice picture of the venue right off the front. You get some amazing prices. I've already used Gametime a couple times this summer. I've bought a couple minor league baseball game tickets. The Columbus Clippers are here in town. I got great seats for my wife and I, just 12 rows up behind home plate for cheap. I bought some NASCAR tickets for a race coming up later in September. It is a phenomenal place to buy tickets. I can't stress that enough. So download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And just some final thoughts here on the Damon Severson trade as it relates to the Blue Jackets and this upcoming team. They are doing a lot of good things in terms of remodeling this team and bringing in established pros. Not just on the ice. Mike Babcock is an established pro who knows how to win in the NHL. Ivan Provorov is a established pro, although it would be a stretch to call him a professional based off the way that he's handled himself at the Flyers organization. But Damon Severson is absolutely a pro's pro because he's shown improvement over his 9 seasons with the Devils. This guy's played 9 seasons with the New Jersey Devils, and he just witnessed the best year that they've seen there. 112 points, like I said. He just is coming from that. He was a huge, huge piece in that. He absolutely earned this contract. He probably would have had a contract like this at any team would have given him this money. So it's a great deal for the Blue Jackets. It still amazes me that players want to come and play in the city of Columbus at the prime of their career. But if I think about it, he's turning 28. I don't know if he's married or if he's looking for a life to settle down, but if he does have kids or wants to have kids, Columbus is one of the best places in America for that. And that's just not just me saying that as someone who lives here. There's studies on that. There's, surveys on that. People say Columbus is a very phenomenal place to live. So that word is certainly getting out there, and it gets me very, very excited to see that guys in the prime of their career, Damon Severson is in the prime of his career, agree to a sign and trade to become a long-term defenseman for the Columbus Blue Jackets that I hope he has a very, very good career here. And I think he can. Like I said, if you look at his highlights, he keeps his head up. He looks for that extra pass. He's willing to move the puck around. He is through and through an offensive defenseman. But it's not just because he's looking to shoot, too. It's because he can pass so well. So not only can the Blue Jackets use that level of scoring, but they could also use that on the power play. They can use that. They can use that in the top 2 lines. They can mix and match certain guys. Blankenberg brings a whole lot. You can mix and match him with Zakharensky, Provorov. I don't know what you want to do. I don't know what he prefers, right or left. I'm excited for Babs to get in there and kind of straighten that out. But like I said, absolutely zero complaints here with what the Blue Jackets have done. The only concern, again, I've said it many, many times already, is that, I guess 2 concerns, and then I'll just get out of here on this. My 2 concerns with this Blue Jackets trade is the fact that it's a long-term deal in terms of it being 8 years. It's $6.25 million a year, which is huge. That's not quite Zakharensky money, but it is what you were paying Seth Jones when he was here in Columbus. So you're going to need to get, at the very least, that level of production out of Damon Severson, which leads me into my next concern. This is a guy known for his offense. The Blue Jackets have a lot of those guys that are known for their offense. I don't know if I want to quite totally build this whole run and gun team because those teams can totally get beat on the back end. Granted, as a fan, I'm more excited about the Blue Jackets being a team like that where I can bet the over every night than a team like under the Tort system where they were just struggling to get 2 or 3 goals every night and you just had to pray that your defense held off and your goaltender was good enough that night. That's not what I want. I want the high-flying offense, so don't get me wrong. I'm obviously very, very excited about this. But at the same time, we need help. We need support on the back end. The goalies were just absolutely left out to dry so many times this past year, and I was so frustrated as a fan with how the Blue Jackets played on defense. So they need to do a better job protecting their goalie, and I don't know what that is, but I don't think bringing in offensive skilled defensive I don't think bringing in offensive minded defensemen is the answer to that. But again, if they're good at offense, I hope that they can be good at defense too, because I think you need to be smart to be good at offense. And I think if a hockey player is smart, then he's willing to learn from a coach. And I think if he's willing to learn from a coach, then you should give him Mike Babcock, because that guy loves to coach. And that guy has coached a lot of really good stars in this league. One of my favorite defensemen of all time, Nicholas Lindstrom. If he can somehow turn Severson into a Nicholas Lindstrom, I am all for that. That would be amazing if he was that guy. And certainly Jarmo must have that in mind, because this is big, big money to a guy who was highly, highly rated coming out of this past season. And it's just nice as a Blue Jackets fan to take a breath of fresh air and just realize, okay, we're doing something to make the team competitive. Things are happening. The wheels are in motion. It is a very, very good time to be a Columbus Blue Jackets fan, and I'm pumped. I just go back to earlier this year when in May, so just a month ago, when the Blue Jackets got the 3rd overall pick in the lottery, and I just was so disappointed. 3 things have happened in a row that have shocked me, that have gotten me very, very excited, sometimes for good and sometimes for bad. But either way, the Blue Jackets are doing a lot to change this roster they had this past year into a new look roster, and I'm very, very excited about it. So I can't emphasize enough how exciting it is to be a Blue Jackets fan. So that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for listening, making this your first listen every day. Locked On Blue Jackets, free and available on all podcast platforms, YouTube, and the Sirius XM app. I am Hayden Heilshorn. You can find me on Twitter at HaydenH971. You can find the show on Twitter at LO_Blue Jackets. You can also email the show, lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com. Thank you once again for listening. And until tomorrow, make sure you stay locked on.